Welcome to KLEAN Radio, removing the stigma from addiction and mental health by discussing the issues and solutions. With your host, legendary news, sports, and entertainment broadcaster, Pat O'Brien.
Radio and television personality, we know him from the World Series, the Super Bowl, NBA Finals, Final Four, U.S. Open, a legend.
And clinical expert with over 2 decades of experience, Andrew Spanswick.
I'm Robert Shapiro.
Hi, I'm LaToya Jackson.
I'm Jack Osborne. You're listening to KLEAN Radio.
I think you're pretty cool, Andrew. Thank you. I like your vibes. And listen, if I was getting loaded, I totally would come to your treatment center.
KLEAN Radio is presented by Pure Simple Juice. Taste the best of what nature has to offer. PureSimpleJuice.com. Join the conversation by calling 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. Facebook.com/KLEAN Radio. On Twitter @KLEAN Radio. And watch the worldwide live video stream at KLEANRadio.com. That's clean with a K. This is KLEAN Radio, and it starts right now.
And by right now, we mean right now. Hi, everybody. I'm Pat O'Brien. Welcome to KLEAN Radio for a Sunday night, a beautiful Sunday night here in Southern California. I'm telling you, this weather is Summer Night City. Andrew Spanswick is here, and we're having a nice dinner tonight outside after the show.
We are, and the Mets won again.
The Mets, I'm telling you.
We're on a streak.
Andrew and I are, we're on WR in New York, the voice of the Mets, voice in New York, biggest station in New York City. And since we've been on WOR, the Mets have not lost.
That's what they pay us for.
They lost one game, so they're 13-1 or something. But
that's still pretty good.
But for the Mets, that's not losing.
Yeah.
And if they start to go downhill, you can blame Len Berman and tell him that Pat O'Brien said to do that. Just call him on his show in the morning.
Great.
Or in the evening. But we're glad to be on WOR. We're also all up and down the coast, all over the country. I'm getting texts from people in the UK and everywhere, so it's going global, and I like that. We have a great show tonight. You can reach us on Facebook, by the way, and our Facebook is facebook.com/KLEAN Radio. Did I say hi to you yet, Andrew? Yeah,
I did. Yes.
Okay.
But you can say hi again because it just makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside.
Yeah, I'm successfully quitting smoking, so I'm a little jittery.
Is that what's going on?
No,
but you just smoked a cigarette. I don't understand how that's quitting smoking.
For me, a cigarette.
Oh, a cigarette. Okay.
KLEANradio.com. Our calling number is like calling us, 800-222-5222. And we have a treatment center number. It's 888-601-6040. With us all night, I hope, is Erica Spiegelman. Hi, Erica. How are you?
Hi, guys.
Hey, Erica.
It's such a pleasure to be back.
She's part
of
our...
You two handsome men.
Oh. Who else is here?
I mean, there's a couple other people, actually.
She just got off an airplane, and we love Erica. She works with us. She has a new book out called Rewired. And according to Pat O'Brien, it's one of the best recovery books ever, it says there on page 2.
Pat O'Brien knows what he's talking about,
and,
so I think we should listen to him.
In all seriousness, it's a beautiful book, and I can't wait to talk about it and get people to read it. So Erica's here. Andrew's here, and we're set to go. And we're going to talk about Bruce Jenner later in the show. 20-some million people watched my friend Bruce, and I think he was very brave and bold, don't you, Andrew? To
Absolutely.
Do what he did, and I'm very proud of him. Well, the first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is that you do not talk about Fight Club. And that's kind of the way AA works. The last 3 traditions of AA is that you don't talk about it, you don't promote it, you don't discuss it. It's not to be put out there. I'm a loyal member of AA. It contributed to my sobriety. It's been almost 7 years now. Gabrielle Glaser wrote this amazing article for The Atlantic that over 1 million people read. And Gabrielle, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm
an Orioles fan, by the way. We haven't talked about that, but that's another conversation.
Orioles always have strong pitching. They come up big in the end.
That's right.
But that's their deal, and that's what the Mets have got to do, by the way, is get their pitching, their bullpen tied up a little bit better. But Gabrielle's written this book, so she's got a book, too, and we'll get to that, too. Her Best Kept Secret's the name of the book. But she wrote this article that was very controversial among the AA group, of which I am a part of. Because, like Fight Club, you're not supposed to talk about AA. And I think this is the first time, Andrew, we've ever even said AA on the show.
Well, we've talked about it a little bit, but yeah, more sort of in reference to it. And that's out of respect for certain people within it. But I think that, I was very pleased to actually see this article by Gabrielle, because I think it brought up points that I've been trying to bring up for a long time. And also, I think even people's initial sort of shocked that someone would address some of these things so publicly has worn off into a situation now where people are really saying, hey, you know what, that's not unreasonable.
And it's very well researched. Gabrielle, why'd you write this article? Basically, do you want me to explain the tenet of it, or would you like to?
No, I can. I wrote a book that came out 2 years ago called Her Best Kept Secret that documented. I've been a mental health journalist and a writer covering the intersection of health and medicine and social trends for, some time now. And I saw an op-ed in the New York Times called Why Is Mom in Rehab? And it made me wonder why more women were going to rehab, and I investigated why more women were drinking, what were the reasons behind it, and then when I got to the rehab section, I'm a normal drinker. I don't have a family history of any addiction, and I assumed, even though I'm a skeptical reporter, that AA was effective because that's what we use, that's what we embrace as a nation, that's what our medical system embraces, our legal system has embraced it as well, and our popular culture certainly endorses it. And I started investigating the effectiveness of AA, and I found that it was actually really only, a successful method for a very small number of people, a minority of the people who try it. So I wrote this book. It came out in 2013. It did very well. It made a little bit of a splash because nobody talks about women drinking. That's kind of
why do they drink? Because of men? Oh, come on, please say yes.
No,
because that's why we drink.
No, honey. No,
because of men?
They drink because women drink for different reasons than men do.
I drank to make other people interesting. But AA has kept me sober, and I know Andrew and I talk about this. That one size does not fit all in the recovery business.
And that's great. That you understand and embrace that. But you know what? A lot of people out there, 80% of our rehabs, the majority of doctors, for example, have not been.
Gabrielle, I think that what's really interesting about your article is it reminds me of several stages in my career where there's been sort of our best guess at what's going on and the best thing that we could possibly do. And it clearly has never been enough, even to date. Like, we know so little still about the mind, about addiction, about compulsive disorders, about all these things that we're driven, I think, largely, unfortunately, by just the paradigm that's worked the best that we know of. And there has not, as you discuss in your article, it's a hard population to study. And
exactly. It's a hard population to study. People don't want to acknowledge that they have a problem. Certainly AA itself is not something that we can study very well because you can't look at it in a randomly controlled double-blind trial because people who are in AA know they're in AA.
It's anonymous, too.
Gabrielle.
Exactly, and it's anonymous.
Sure it is. Gabrielle Glaser is with us, and she her other book, by the way, you owe me $10 because I printed it out and it took like 300 pages, but we'll get to that later. Her Best Kept Secret.
Yeah, I'll send you a Starbucks card.
There you go. By the way, thanks to AA, Starbucks stock goes up about every time there's a meeting.
I'm sure.
But as far as the anonymity is concerned, and as far as the whole conversation about AA is concerned, when Dr. Bob and Bill Wilson formed AA in 35 or in the late
35, 35.
In the late 30s, when Dr. Bob died, his last words to Bill Wilson were, "Keep it simple," and that's where that came from. But now here we are 70 years later, 75 years later, and it's not so simple, is it? I mean, you point this out in your article. Recovery is not simple. And to my AA friends, I'm not violating anything. I believe in AA, but it's not simple. It's not. You can't just say go to AA.
Gabrielle,
right?
Oh, I was just gonna. Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna echo. This is Erica Spiegelman. I was just gonna echo that. When I was writing my book Rewired, it was because I had clients that were coming into my office saying I had a bad day. There was a bad speaker at our meeting, and they really put a lot of their eggs in one basket, and kind of AA becomes their life versus having some other options. Other things that really keep them probably mentally inspired or emotionally growing or intellectually stimulated or something else. So I think that it's important.
I've always said that AA is not treatment.
Yeah, it can't be the only.
And it's not. It's an adjunct.
They don't claim to be treatment.
Right. I think,
the problem is,
but the issue that I have, let me just jump in, Gabrielle, a second. I think one of the issues for me is that one is that we have this research issue and that people are just taking it on with some sort of blind faith because it is based on a spiritual awakening. The other problem is that it does exclude other potentially medically based treatments from sort of being able to penetrate the business of the addiction community. Yeah. That being said, a lot of people are now doing dual diagnosis treatment. Our treatment centers, especially, we use AA only as an ancillary benefit. You cannot detox safely by just going to AA. There's huge medical problems, and now we don't just the fact that we just talk about alcoholism is not fair because the vast majority of addicts and people with problems that we're seeing have mental illnesses along with mostly polysubstance abuse disorders and some sort of other process disorder like gambling or sex or shopping. So there's something holistic about consciousness in human beings that's much larger than just saying the disease of alcoholism.
Yeah. Gabrielle Glaser is our guest, interrupting a dinner party that I was not invited to, which is irritating.
Not to brag, I'm in New Jersey, all right?
Oh, I love New Jersey.
I just came from there. We had a really cold couple days.
Oh, my New York Giants. By the way, we have a treatment center number. It's 888-601-6040. What has been the biggest reaction or, by the way, the article, one title was called The False Prophecy of AA. Another one was called something else, so depending on where you bought this magazine. It was the April issue of The Atlantic, and it's a beautifully written article. What has been the biggest... Well, first of all, you mentioned some medical things in there that work. Talk to me about that.
Well, this is an interesting
or seem
thing.
To work.
Finland also has a terrific history of really severe binge drinking. And an American doctor named John David Sinclair, he passed away on April 6th. May he rest in peace. He was a genius. He discovered that with the use of rats, that alcohol use is something that is a learned behavior. And it's a learned behavior because your brain releases endorphins, which are feel-good hormones. So if you're anticipating a drink, you're releasing endorphins. You drink the alcohol, you get the endorphin release, which gives you the reward. If you could block that reward, he reasoned in the 1970s and 80s, you could somehow cut off the craving, you could cut off the behavior, you could cut off the excess drinking. And so he started experimenting with an opioid antagonist, which blocks endorphins go to the opioid receptor, right, which is open there to receive the endorphins, which make you feel good. If you could block that, if you could, cut that off at the pass by using an opioid antagonist, in this case naltrexone, it's a totally safe drug. It was developed in the 1970s. Nobody, I want to make this clear, nobody is making money off this drug, certainly not me. People ask me all the time, are you backed by pharmaceuticals? For God's sake, no, I'm a journalist. Right. It is a generic drug. It's available, cheaply, and it blocks the ability for the endorphins to reach the opioid receptor, so you do not get the reward.
Right.
You may have the pleasure of drinking with your buddies, opening a glass of wine, opening a bottle of wine, and drinking it, but you are not going to keep drinking until you're blotto, because there's no reward.
Right. It's like one drink's too many, 1,000 is not enough. But, how is it that... and by the way, Chris Kennedy Lawford just tweeted that he's listening and that you're making good points. And Chris is a beacon of Alcoholics Anonymous and a dear friend of ours here on this show. How is it, though, that I drank more than anybody, did every drug on earth, continued to work and made money and all that kind of stuff, and then, completely crashed, and I hadn't had a drink in 62,000 hours. And I have no cravings. Ask Andrew, he's with me all the time. There's no craving whatsoever. I go into bars.
You know what? Hey,
and it's all because of AA.
You are lucky, and AA worked for you. But AA works for about 10% of the people who try it.
Actually, 8, right?
Right. Here's the part
I'm being generous there.
Right.
Okay?
So
I'm
here's
being generous.
I think you're being generous. I mean, I think there's something called the orangepapers.org that has a lot of really interesting information on how AA outcome stats are skewed by AA and how they did a study on buying all the chips in, I think it was Wisconsin or something, and then they figured out what percentage were 10-year chips, and it was like 0.03% or something like that. So we know that there's an issue with that. But the other thing is that all of this data is skewed because people that go to AA and then it works for them, and they may not have been a full addict, but they were abusing alcohol or had a problem with alcohol, may go out of AA, but then that would be counted as a failure necessarily. So a lot of this is that the outcome stats are skewed by the fact that, one, the data really isn't there. Two, we don't know who comes in and who comes out, and based on why they come in and why they come out. But most importantly, I think the data is totally skewed because we don't know really what an outcome is. There is no definition that's really, other than not drinking, that's a good outcome for alcohol. And
exactly.
And when people talk to me about our treatment centers, like what I'm talking about in outcomes, I always say, well, my first outcome is to get them through treatment successfully, get them sober, and then the next thing is to deal with the potential for relapse. And this is a chronic, ongoing problem that has to be addressed daily.
But what does sober mean? Does sober mean, in Finland, for example, sober means drinking like a normal person?
This is exactly what I'm saying. That there's a multitude of...
Sober doesn't have to mean, like, I interviewed a guy in Finland who drank 80 drinks a week. Okay, by any standard, that's a ton of alcohol. Right. All right? I can't even... I am not a big... I like alcohol. I have a
my point,
serious
I did more than that.
Valve. All right? I have a serious shut-off valve. So I can't understand. I'll be honest. People always ask me, did you have a bad experience with AA? Are you some sort of failed alcoholic? The answer is no. Okay? I'm like... I can't drink more than 3 drinks.
Right, but here's the deal, though. Here's the deal, though, because I did a study one time about why people... from Michigan are so liberal. Why people that go to the University of Michigan are so liberal. And the answer was, after spending the government's money, was that liberal people go to Michigan, and that's why. And I think with AA, it's the people that can't control their drinking and really didn't know of any other choice, and somehow they arrested it. I don't care about the numbers, but the people that I see arrested. But it's also a huge therapy session for $1. A meeting, and you get to get into yourself. There's the alcohol, and then there's the ism, and that's all you're...
Right, but Pat, there's also data, extremely good longitudinal data from federal studies over, beginning in the 1990s, continuing through the early 2000s, that show that 75% of people who become alcohol dependent get better on their own.
Right. Yeah. Well, we know this, but once again, this is. But once again,
I've had enough of this.
My point. This is once again, one of the reasons we're in such a mess in this industry is the definitions are very poor.
Correct.
For example, the definition of alcoholic drinking and alcoholism, and whether or not someone's activated in that disease. You smartly in the article used the word dependency. Yeah. But a lot of people think of alcoholism as a set of whole bunch of behaviors, and that those things aren't necessarily even arrested if you're abstinent.
But and the problem is that people want a definition, and they're really
right. But we don't even, scientists don't even use that term anymore. They don't use the word alcoholic. They use the term alcohol use disorder, which denotes a
it's from the new DSM-5.
Right, which is a spectrum. People can be mild, moderate, dependent.
The DSM-5 is
the
medical.
I actually think, it's the medical. It was actually the book created so that clinicians could speak to each other about diseases in codified ways. But my thing with this is that a lot of what we're seeing is that people are saying, okay, I'm alcoholic, when in fact they might be, and this is the same thing as talking about spectrum, but I've always said it's use, abuse, and then addiction. And that even with the guy that you were talking about in Finland, okay, so he takes naltrexone, which I have nothing against, takes naltrexone, he goes to a normal type of drinking, he'd be considered a failure under AA's criteria.
Exactly.
Right.
And by Finnish standards, he is a raging success. This guy went from, drinking 80 drinks a week to drinking maximum 8 or 10.
But when people take naltrexone or Suboxone or something that blocks some kind of receptor, that's still not fixing like the ongoing thoughts and behaviors. I mean, now they're going to be dependent on another drug.
Well, it's harm.
No.
It's harm.
In Finland, wait a second. Hold on. All right. In Finland, and clinicians here throughout New York, throughout Los Angeles, there is a great group of guys in Los Angeles, Addie Jaffe and Mark Kern at Addictions Alternatives. You don't just get the drug and go into the wild blue yonder. You get cognitive behavioral therapy. You learn what your triggers are. You have to keep a diary, your drinking diary, what your thoughts, your beliefs, your cognitive, your cognition is. You learn how to cope. It's not just taking a drug and, bye-bye, here's the end of your problem.
Right, but that's cognitive and behavioral therapy. So you're combining. One of the things that's really interesting to me, and I'm not a proponent for AA for direct treatment. I'm a proponent for people getting direct medical treatment and then using whatever resources they can to stay sober.
Direct treatment.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But that being said, we do know for a fact that people that go into these treatment centers, and the thing is, let me back up a second. The best way to really explain this, I think, is that there is no single type of alcoholic. There's almost every person out there is different. Yep. They have a whole bunch of different issues. You add the multitude of mental health disorders that are used for self-medicating into addiction or drug abuse, and that's just trying to figure out how to treat all those clients alone is very, very difficult.
And let's just be clear, okay? One of the reasons that led me to this topic is that women drink. Everybody drinks for different reasons, okay? But women are far more likely to be diagnosed with depression, with anxiety disorders. They're far more likely to have had eating disorders, and they are far, far, far more likely to have been sexually abused. That is an enormous risk factor for women, all right? And AA, while it may be helpful for so many people, and I'm not saying AA shouldn't exist, okay? I'm not saying that. And that has really been something that people have suggested about me, that people have attacked me for, and people have misrepresented my reporting, which is extremely careful, which is methodical, and you know what? You're just reading it the wrong way if that's how you think. But that's how you think. I mean, I know you're not. I'm just saying that to listeners who might have another opinion. But AA began in 1935 by guys at the top of the social pyramid. They were white, privileged guys.
They were also chronic alcoholics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But alcohol was the one thing they didn't have control over.
Right.
And they said, okay, we're powerless over this.
Which was they were powerless over a lot of other things. They just didn't include them in the list.
But it was a clinical, and I want to just give credit to AA where it's due. It was a clinical and cultural milestone for these guys to say, okay, we don't have dominion over this.
Right.
But so many women, people of color, people in the LGBT community, you mentioned Bruce Jenner earlier, people who drink too much, by and large, don't feel like they have power over a lot of stuff in their lives. And particularly people who have been sexually abused, and that is a lot of people out there.
I tried everything that's in the article.
Let me just say this. They're drinking to forget. They're drinking to blunt that trauma. And AA, while it may be helpful for so many people, does not address those traumas.
Right. Just remember, some dance to remember and some dance to forget.
My big issue is that all these receptors are good from a public health standpoint, and they, in a way, they are sort of drug replacement therapies with less side effects than some of the other ones we've used in the past.
And I'm not saying stay on naltrexone forever. I'm saying this is what they do in Finland. Stay on it for 6 months. We're going to get you through this period of your craving.
And this is exactly what I'm talking about. So this is the problem that I have from a clinician standpoint running treatment centers, is that if I stick somebody in America's healthcare scheme, or the way it's set up in terms of insurance and reimbursement and all these other things that I have to deal with as a provider, it's almost impossible for me to get enough time to get them off that receptor at the end. So they still tend to have effects of the opiate blocker blocking their feelings and the underlying issues. And it's actually hard to get real long-term resolve on the major problems of trauma and issues that you discuss. And that's, I think, the next step that really needs to be explored.
Well, that's why we need individualized treatment.
Absolutely.
And
and we do that.
One size does not fit all. That's the deal.
Yep. First of all, the airlines are all packed with people trying to get to Finland now, and
you can't believe how much those guys have so many requests for patients, people coming wanting to go there.
And I'll be going to my 2 AA meetings tomorrow.
We do by the way prescribe naltrexone to patients. So, it's always an option. And we're doing a harm reduction track, which is people that actually want to keep using. So, and are struggling with that. So
that's great to hear.
Absolutely.
That's great to hear because one size does not fit all. That's my point.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Gabrielle, it's so great to hear that.
Gabrielle, have a nice dinner. I'm sorry we interrupted it. And
that's all right.
You owe me $10 and...
I do not owe you $10, man. Honestly, really.
You're great. Thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
All right, well, there she goes. And that was a controversial article. I'm glad we got into it. But it's, to all my AA friends, I don't think I'm breaking any traditions. We're just having a conversation about it.
I think that the protections on anonymity are different now than they used to be. And there needs to be some evolution in the whole discussion of that and what that really means. Because it's important that people get out there and contribute and talk.
And that's why AA hates celebrities, because we relapse and have anonymity. I was in rehab for an hour and there were helicopters flying over it.
And the thing is, relapse is part of this illness, and these drugs can be helpful with that, but they're not a be-all and solve-all.
Okay, we got to take a break.
Okay.
Gabrielle Glaser, her book is called Her Best Kept Secret. There's another book coming out about rewiring your mind is what we're talking about. That's written by our own Erica Spiegelman. She's coming back, and then when we come back around the corner, we're going to talk about my friend Bruce Jenner, a courageous, wonderful man. We'll be back.
Don't let addiction to drugs or alcohol steal another year of your life. KLEAN Treatment Center provides world-class addiction assistance that also treats the underlying causes and provides vital aftercare so people can get clean and stay clean. Live, kind, professional help is standing by to provide immediate assistance or to simply answer questions and provide guidance. If you or someone you care about is suffering from addiction, take action now. Log on to cleantreatmentcenters.com. That's clean with a K.
Welcome back. Howard Bragman is on hold. We're going to talk to him about, he's sort of been the guru of navigating people.
Welcome back to KLEAN Radio. Join the conversation by dialing 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. Facebook.com/KLEAN Radio. And on Twitter @KLEAN Radio. Now back to Los Angeles with Pat O'Brien and Andrew Spanswick.
Roger from Salem, Oregon's called. Hello, Roger. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing?
What's on your mind?
Hey, I was over there in court at Deschutes County, and they asked me a question. They said they didn't have time for slow thinkers when I asked for a moment to think about it and give them an answer. But when it comes to AA in the courts, how could they order you to go to court or to go to AA if you don't have a desire to quit drinking, since that's the only qualification of AA?
Well, no, they give you a choice, jail or AA. A lot of people take jail because they don't want to go to meetings. But that's not, you got that wrong. They order people who have had multiple DUIs and stuff to get to a meeting in AA or go to jail for 30 days. So
they have to sign a card.
Yeah, but that's what it's about. It's not that you're ordered to it. The thing is, you can choose just to go to jail, but why not try something different? Anyway.
Abrupt change of subject now because, as everybody knows, Bruce Jenner came out as a woman this past week, Friday. 23 million people watched it. Among them, me and my friend Howard Bragman, who runs 15 Minutes and is the man who is probably more involved in the gay and lesbian and transgender community than anybody because he brings people out. He did Chaz Bono and Michael Sam, and he's my friend for 100 years. Hello, Howard. How are you?
I'm good. It's been 111 years.
I know. I tried to hide that. So how did Bruce do you think?
I think it was a lovely interview. I think, I kind of see how I feel. Then I log on to social media, and people, my social media group, which is pretty heavily LGBT, but it's pretty mixed, people really, really supportive of Bruce and the honesty and the courage it takes to do that. And he's not a young person. He's 65 years old, and to live your life at that age, and you think about the pain that he's had in his life, and your heart wants to break for the guy.
When was the last time you saw him? Her?
Well, he doesn't want to be called her yet. We'll just call. The last time I saw Bruce was probably at a Christmas party at your house, and I remember you and I had talked about how he, was feminizing almost before our eyes. His body was getting softer, and his face was losing some of its edge. And I remember growing up, and he was one of the most handsome guys there was.
Greatest athlete in the world.
So,
Howard, this is Andrew, co-host here.
Andrew.
I found refreshing about the interview, which I haven't seen in other interviews like this, and not that there's really been one this big, but I was really refreshed to see that the discussion about gender identity and sexual identity was actually brought up and discussed in ways that was really explaining to people what those things really mean, because most people don't know. And a lot of homophobia is based on that misunderstanding as well. And then you get into transgendered issues, and oh my goodness, people are so confused, they don't know.
Well, I was watching with probably our best couple friends, my husband and I, and they're a straight couple who is more gay-friendly than anyone I know. And the wife was having trouble understanding the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation. And I had a very smart gay friend who's a doctor. You know, when we were having that discussion, it can mess with your head. And there's a model I worked with a little over a year ago, Andrea Pejic, beautiful model, transgender, used to be an androgynous model, then fulfilled his wish of becoming female, and stunning, big feature on him in Vogue. And he said, you know, what we're learning is that sexual taste, gender, are a lot more complicated than we thought they were. And I think that's true. I think for the vast majority of people, it's pretty clear if you're male or female, and if you like men or you like women sexually. But some people aren't that way.
All right.
And it's a continuum, and we have to understand that.
Howard Bragman's our guest, and helping us understand, is Bruce gay?
All right, so he didn't really go there. He certainly looked uncomfortable with the word gay. Mm-hmm. It's right now he said he was asexual. Right. And, you know, people in the world would say, well, you just want to label people. Chaz Bono was a lesbian when he was legally a female. He was going out with a woman, and then he was a lesbian. Then he transitioned and legally became a man. Now he's a heterosexual man. It's the same person, okay? I mean, there are differences, but it's essentially the same person. And that's what I think the community wants people to understand.
Howard, how much do you think is a lot of this people's fear being shown about their... I mean, Bruce Jenner, he was a decathlon, won the gold medal. He was sort of viewed as the ultimate
man,
you know, physical male specimen by winning that medal. And now we find out that he wants to really be a woman. Do you think a lot of people are threatened by that?
I think people are threatened because they thought of him a certain way. And this kind of shatters it. And the fact that he was so macho, so athletic, so handsome, so everything a man should be, as manly a man as there was, and then he wants to transition, I think that can be pretty crazy.
So what we see, though, is we see the oppressiveness of what am I trying to say? People that are homophobic. The homophobic sort of presence is also applied to transgenders, transgendered people, although they're not necessarily gay.
Well, it's transphobic, and it's,
right.
You know, people with sexual identity issues and people outside, you know, that are not straight, heterosexual, you know, men or women, cisgender, that is, your body is the sex you want it to be, identify with. I'm probably being very politically incorrect,
yes.
and I apologize.
No, you're not.
No, what I want
to
say
discuss
a couple
what
things.
the people that feel that way. We're trying to discuss what they're thinking.
Hi, Howard.
Confusion.
This is Erica. But the one thing, like, everybody's talking about, at least the people that I know, my friends, and I was listening to some radio talk shows. Everyone wants him to identify sexuality. That's all that people keep talking about, because he said he liked to have sex with women.
Yes,
and he
but
said
let
he had
me
a
say
great
two
sex
things
life.
about that.
Mm-hmm.
One, that as I understand the process, unless you have a partner and are being sexual, a lot of people have a little asexual time in their life. So I don't think it's unusual that Bruce is being asexual. And one of two things will happen. Either or three things. One, he will continue to be asexual. Two, he will continue to like women. But some people, when the hormones change, some people change too.
True.
And that's been shown to happen. So anything could happen, and that will really mess with people's minds, won't it, Pat?
Yes.
I can't wait. That sounds
I mean,
fun.
to me, unfortunately, all of this stems towards the fact that people, I mean, Bruce is a 67-year-old man, I think I just heard, right? I mean, he's not exactly primed for reproducing as a male. So, but a lot of people are hung up on the fact that reproduction is such an important part of our definition of sexuality. And so you get this thing where people panic at the idea that other people might not be of the same gender that they represent themselves to be.
Yeah.
And I think that fear that could exist, that the problem could actually be within them at some level. All this stuff, as we know, is on a continuum.
Yeah.
So I think it's very, very threatening, and it's extremely bold for it to come out in such a public way.
You know what the number one thing, and I think that the brushback on this has been, Howard, I don't think it's been that bad at all. I expected much worse, and that's because...
Listen, we all knew going into it what
Yeah.
was happening. We'd all
Right.
seen the pictures. That's number one. And so he had a long runway, as we say. And number two, we like the guy. And with every study of sexuality, you know, the more people come out, the more we like him.
I think the biggest shock was he came out as a Republican.
Yeah, well, I put that on Facebook. I created a meme that says, now Bruce shares the shocking news. He's a Republican. And it's true. There's a lot of gay people who are not happy that he said he's a Republican, and the people that he may emulate politically are probably not people who want him to show up at their political events.
Howard, you've been in the trenches. I've actually been there with you for a long time. And I love you, you know that. And thanks for coming on. I know you're busy tonight, too. And Howard puts a navigation, a GPS on these subjects, and he's very good at it. Howard, thanks.
Thanks a lot for having me.
There he is. I'll talk to you tomorrow, Howard. There's Howard Bragman, who is the guy that people go to, and he's very good at navigating them to what is a horrific thing to have to go through in this country with Twitter and social media.
And the other thing is, I think we need to realize sexual identity, gender identity are some of the key things that make people drink and use.
Absolutely.
So this is, you know, as much as we have the issue of sexuality and gender identity, we also have the issue of how people try to self-medicate with that.
Yeah, we have
and what are the
abuse, we have
ramifications of people not being accepting of it in our society.
Let me say this about Bruce. I've known him since 1976. He's one of the greatest men I've known. I don't care what he's done. It's been his path. His family's great. They support him. The Kardashians are actually great people. I've known them all, and I just think I'm so happy for him, and that took a lot.
I think everyone's happy for him. That's been the majority of
That took I think that's been the good part, and I think
it shows we're changing.
Time now for our reality distortion field, and here's Buddy. Oh, come on. 10th grade.
And now, your king of all social media. All rise for Sir Budwin Totten.
All right.
Wow, this
Wow.
is major.
Yes.
He's
I'm
moving up
excited
in
to
the world.
witness this.
I know.
Yeah.
Quite an entrance.
All right, what's going on out there?
How's it going?
Good.
All right, so this is what's happening on Facebook.com/Clean Radio and Twitter at Clean Radio. And let's see here. So Thomas, we have some questions for you guys. First up is Thomas. I just got out of prison 3 months ago, and I have 4 years clean, but I'm having trouble finding a job because of my record. How should I handle this difficult problem?
I actually have a spot. Well, I actually know people who got out of prison and went looking for jobs, and they do quite well because they're honest. And I think in today's world, if you go into your employer and say, look, I've been in prison, I've served my time, and I've had these things. I think that's a different world out there, Andrew, because of the work that you do and we do at the Clean Centers, that people are able, and I talk about this over at the center when I do my group over there, that
There's some
when
companies.
when you get out, they know the deal now, most of them.
Well, we hire a lot of people that are in recovery. I mean, just because they're attracted to the field. Some of them have criminal records, some of them don't. I dare almost anybody to tell me that they haven't committed a felony in their life of some type.
But there's a lot of companies now that do hire. I mean, they do, and you can go online. Actually, there's a website that will hire. It shows all the companies that support people.
The other thing that's going on is like we're starting Clean Cafe, our nonprofit, and we're going to be doing job training. And I think that job training and reintegration of the workforce is crucial to people coming out of recovery, and more people need to be doing it.
Erica Spiegelman is with us. Thank you, you, buddy. Thank you again for the king. Do we have to call you king?
Sure.
All right, Your Majesty, thank you.
Sure. I would just like to say one more thing.
Sure.
I would like to give a shout out to Aubrey. After an exhaustive social media campaign, Aubrey Moss has been found alive and well, and we wish her and her family all the best. So thank you, everybody out there in social media land, for helping to bring her home. Thank you so much.
Glad she's found.
It's great. Excellent. Thanks, buddy.
You bet.
Erica Spiegelman is a counselor and a speaker and renowned for her attitudes and actually
Her attitudes.
I have a lot of attitudes.
Oh, let me finish.
Okay. All right.
You know where I was going. Honesty is the first chapter in the Book of Wisdom, according to you,
Yes.
Erica. She's written a book called Rewired, A Bold New Approach to Addiction and Recovery. What is the bold new approach?
The bold new approach is to have an individualized plan, like we were talking about earlier, and to basically help yourself. The power is always within you, and you have to be able to source it with different ways. And so I wanted to give people a bunch of different ingredients, different principles, and start to change people's identity from what they used to be like when they used to what they are now going to become when they start to add honesty to their life and boundaries and time management and authenticity and learning what that is to them. I think it's important. A lot of people that have been addicted to drugs or dependent on drugs have different kinds of behaviors, and they have to adjust those behaviors by rewiring their pathways. So that's what the book is about.
When does it come out?
It comes out on Tuesday, April 28th.
It's exciting.
It's and I think what this book does is what Erica does, and somebody wrote in one of the reviews that she kind of is a addiction detective, and she navigates the ways to have a different kind of life.
Yes, someone did write that.
Yeah.
Yes, and I just think like we were talking earlier, with our guest, and she was saying how everybody really needs to have an individualized plan, and Andrew, I know, has agreed with me on that for a long time. And AA isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's only one part of the recipe, and there's many other things out there, and I think it's good that people know that there's hope and there's their own path to find.
Let's go up to Long Beach, Washington, where we have a center, the Clean Center up there. I've been in that one, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And who we got here? Eagle Bart. Is that your name, Eagle Bart?
Eagle Bear.
Eagle
Bear.
Bear.
Oh, somebody spelled it wrong.
Hi.
That's all right. That's all right. No, I pronounced it wrong. We're good. What's up?
Hey, yeah, I was calling to see, because I had this question in my mind since I've been over here in Long Beach, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my own personal experience, like a spiritual experience, like my heart and my mind connecting and becoming one with my body and my spirit, you should say.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if you guys have an opinion on, does it come from all the pain I've been through, or is it because it comes from the pain that I've been letting go and experiencing?
It comes from freedom.
Yeah.
And once you and I know at these centers up there and all around the country that we have, not to shill for them, but I'm shilling for them, is that they do a whole program of how you get your life together. But by getting rid of, and that's where AA comes in, because you do get rid of a lot of the crap in your life.
Yeah.
But that's called freedom, and freedom leads to a spiritual. You don't have to be religious. Spirituality is God-made. Religion is man-made.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be religious, but that's what you're feeling is exactly what I think they want you to feel. Is that you're free, and these are new feelings.
They're emotions. I mean, for a long time when you're using, you don't feel your emotions. So this is probably what's coming up, and to sit in your pain, to sit in your sadness, and allow yourself to cry or allow yourself to be angry and just marinate in that is really something that is probably new for most people that are getting sober.
I think that, first of all, congratulations.
Yeah.
Anytime somebody gets to the point where they're feeling better and realizing things about themselves that they were missing during their drug abuse, that's a huge achievement.
Yep.
And we see this a lot, though. We see that people that have been addicts and have been using have lost touch with most of the parts of their lives other than the part that allowed them to keep using and drinking, which was normally self-medicating for some sort of trauma or problem or just plain outright addiction. And so, the fact that you're now experiencing being sober at an older age, and you're starting to then when you started using, and you're starting to feel and discover a lot of different things about yourself, that's actually called being human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But now you're developing coping skills about how to actually be human and how to deal with the good and the bad parts of that. And life is a struggle. Life can be difficult, and it's about getting the tools to make sure that you can handle that without having to drink or use drugs.
And it's about embracing also the pain, because pain is not our enemy. We have to learn that it's part of us. And if we keep pushing that away, that's what starts to happen, is we start to look for other things to Band-Aid that.
Right. Eagle Bear, thank you very much. And I think we're going to be up there shortly. Everybody dies with some scars.
Yeah.
But nobody, according to Oscar Wilde, wants to die with the music still in them. So that's what recovery is about. You get the scars, and you go and learn how to live your life. Eagle Bear, thank you so much for your call. When you write a book about different ways of recovery, and Andrew, actually, I want both of you to talk about this. It's hard because I'm starting to write another book now about my journey, which has already been
an interesting one.
New York Times bestseller. I'll be back right after this, coming out in paperback December 5th. But
nice little plug.
But I said earlier that when Dr. Bill and Bob put this together, it was so simple in 1935, and they did it for the reasons that they wanted to do, and it just built into this huge thing. Like it or not, it works for a lot of people. But so when you say you're gonna revolutionize recovery,
I also think though, Pat, that addiction was underdefined.
No, absolutely.
For AA, and that's one of the criticisms that I think AA needs to address somehow, is that it was really written for late stage male alcoholics, and we've adapted it over time to dealing with other things. In DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, and CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, the two main types of therapy that are used for addiction and addicts, they're very similar to AA. In fact, if you compare the central tenets of AA to the central tenets of dialectical behavioral therapy, they're actually the same mechanisms.
I was just going to say that.
It's ironic that if Bill Wilson were in AA today, that he founded, he'd be a lot better off, because he was, he never got over fear. Like, he had a mattress under windows. He's afraid he's going to jump out of his window every night. But, it's advanced.
But the steps, because the steps in AA are very therapeutic. I mean, the way I look at it too, sometimes it's to tell people, look at it like an education. And yes, the first step is surrendering. And, as you go through the steps, I'm not going to go through them all, but there's a fourth step where you make amends. And you address the things that you're suppressing, and you talk about the things that you're ashamed of. And all of that is something we do in therapy that I do day to day.
Yeah, these are all therapeutic tools. The controversy comes in is on this issue of religion. And one of the things that sort of AA has been reluctant to accept, I believe, is that they really are based on a Christian spiritual doctrine. And that
more spiritual than Christian.
Yeah, more, but it comes out of Christian spirituality.
It's God-based.
Yeah,
and people have a problem with the God thing.
So people have problems with organized religion. A lot of the reasons that is, a lot of people have been traumatized by organized religion.
Right.
So it's hard to cross that boundary of, okay, I'm going to go back to the idea that I actually have to believe in myself and believe in the world and believe in things around me, but not necessarily I don't have to believe in that particular type of God from that particular type of church.
We could replace
that. Might have bothered me. Yeah.
We could replace the word too. You could.
I hate the word alcoholic. I try to identify myself as a recovered. When I speak all over the country. By the way, I'll be in Denver this month, and then Andrew and I will be at the AA convention, as a matter of fact, in June.
In Atlanta.
We're speaking on the Mall in Washington, D.C. in August. So if you can drag me out of Nantucket for that week. So, yeah, I mean, and things change, and people's minds change, and different people come into programs differently.
Well, the world changes, too. I mean, there's a lot of different things going on in the world that has come up since the 1930s.
Including a lot of new drugs.
New drugs, social media. There's other ways people are now becoming addicted to things.
Right,
technology, process addictions, gambling there's a bunch of different
How about
things.
addicted? I want to get some business out of the way. When is your book signing? Next week?
It's May 3rd on Sunday, this May 3rd at the Brentwood Country Mart at the Diesel Bookstore.
Across the street from,
It's 3 p.m. sharp. Yeah.
Great.
That's a cool bookstore over there.
It's a great bookstore, and I'm really excited and honored and want everybody to come. Come on down.
You can park right there at the bank. They'll say you can't, but you can. Just go park at the Bank of America.
Oh, that'd be huge.
Or at the Country Mall or Country Mart parking lot there.
Right.
There's plenty of parking over there. It's at 26th and San Vicente.
Exactly.
One of those places like that.
Yes.
Andrew, when we bring people in to the KLEAN Center, and we're running out of time here, but we want to. We do talk about the steps, and we do talk about the traditions, but we also, I think what I like about what you do over there is that there's a full program that tries to encompass everything. My point is that it's not easy. It's not a simple program because there's so much to deal with. From your soul to your brain.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about changing your life completely for the better. And that, for some people, that's not so hard. For some people, that can be changing literally everything in their life for the better.
Right.
And there's a lot of baggage and obligations and shame and ideas and stuff that you pick up over your life that has to be processed. So the longer and more complicated you've been while you're in addiction, the more problems you have to sort out to be able to just get to a point where you can cope.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a lot of what we try to do. We want to make sure that people don't only just, you know, meet the criteria of checking off, okay, detox, check. Okay, understands the, you know, definition of alcoholism, check. You know, that's not enough. It's about really digging into figuring out what the trauma, what the problems, what precipitated their addictions, the type of things that trigger them to move forward and continue to use. And it's getting to the root of all those and then giving them, you know, solid places where they feel secure, like good AA meetings, and there are some bad AA meetings, but really good AA meetings, and then also really supportive aftercare where they know that if they screw up or if they get relapse, because this is an illness and people relapse, it's just a part of it, that they know immediately how to shorten that relapse to the smallest length of time and get back into treatment.
888-601-6040, 24/7. You can call there if you have a problem or a question. You know, we forgot to mention, we're running out of time here, that Obamacare has helped out with recovery, and with people don't have a lot of money sometimes to pay for recovery, and thanks to Obamacare, who, by the way, he was great at the Washington dinner the other night. That's helped a lot too. So
it's starting to, although unfortunately the state governments are largely trying to crowd the funding out by claiming they're not going to accept certain Medicaid dollars. So there is a large attack against the Affordable Care Act, which is also known as Obamacare. But and that has restricted the numbers dramatically. They expected originally 40 million people would be able to get coverage, and because of states' restrictive efforts, they're down to only about, I think, 8. So, you know, 8 to 10, I think, have signed up so far.
Well, now that Bruce Jenner's a Republican, maybe he can help us out with that. I know he's listening.
We'll get him on it.
Yeah, come on, Bruce. Let's go. Let's get active. Erica Spiegelman, book signing next week.
Thank you guys for having me on.
And thank you for getting us playing. Rewired's the name of the book, A Bold New Approach to Addiction and Recovery. Andrew Spanswick, you're great as always, and we'll see you next week. We have a lot going on here.
Thanks, Pat.
And for the rest of you out there listening, put your tray tables back up, unbuckle your seatbelts, file one by one outside the plane on your pilot. I'm Pat O'Brien. We'll see you next week. A great night tonight. We'd like to thank Howard Bragman and just talking about recovery. That's what we do here. We talk about it. We don't force it on you. We just want to open your mind a little bit, and that's what it's all about.
Fantastic.
We'll see you next time.
Don't let addiction to drugs or alcohol steal another year of your life. KLEAN Treatment Center provides world-class addiction assistance that also treats the underlying causes and provides vital aftercare so people can get clean and stay clean. Live, kind, professional help is standing by to provide immediate assistance or to simply answer questions and provide guidance. If you or someone you care about is suffering from addiction, take action now. Log on to cleantreatmentcenters.com. That's clean with a K.